Welcome back to Flashpoint. Our conversation now continues with top North Carolina Senator Phil Berger. I want to talk about school vouchers. The bill passed both the House and the Senate, now working out budget issues, I believe. Critics argue that there's not a lot of accountability in some of these private or charter schools. And unlike public schools, they can turn away students for random reasons. What do you say to those critics that say, even if they believe in these vouchers, that there needs to be more accountability if we're going to send public school students to some of these schools?
Yeah, so I believe that the best accountability is the accountability that comes with parental involvement, and that parents are in a better position than anybody, better position than a bureaucrat somewhere, better position than a school superintendent somewhere to know what's best for that parent's child. And so while I'm sympathetic to, and we're looking at options to require or at least have administered some tests that are nationally normed, even in the private schools that receive vouchers, I don't think that's necessary to have the kind of accountability that we need. Remember, we currently have a situation as far as the traditional public schools where many people are just trapped based on the fact that they live at a particular address. And not everybody, in fact, most people don't have the wherewithal to sell their house or to move from one place to another if their child is in a school or is assigned to a school that does not meet that child's needs. And so wealthy people have always had the ability to opt out of the traditional public system to put their child in the school that best fits their child's needs. And I think that's something that every parent should have the right to do.
A lot of folks talk about public schools failing. And I spoke to a group of teachers this past weekend. It does feel like sometimes our teachers are sometimes being set up for failure. Now, I know the teachers union is probably not one of your favorite groups, but I mean, for the average public school teacher out there, do you feel like the state has their back?
So I think the state is supportive. The state legislature clearly is supportive of teachers in the traditional public schools. I do think that in many instances, the administrative control of the public schools makes decisions that make the schools less safe for teachers, make the schools less able to have the kind of environment where learning can take place. And I think many teachers recognize that. And while we want to make sure that we pay our teachers an appropriate, fair, and competitive wage, we also need to do a better job of making sure that the environment that teachers in the public schools are working in is one that is safe for them, conducive to learning, and an environment that children will succeed in.
A current Senate bill would ban any healthcare professional in the state from providing any gender-affirming medical care to anybody under the age of 18. These interventions are very rare, and leading medical groups support them when they are necessary. But all that aside, you just said parents know best when it comes to their kids and not bureaucrats. Couldn't you make that exact same argument when it comes to parents of transgender kids looking to get the medical care they feel like their kids need?
So the question is, how absolute do you want that to be? Do you want parents to have the absolute right to make any decision, even if it harms the child? I think we've got a long history of recognizing that in some instances, the parents are not making good decisions. In some instances, parents make destructive decisions. In some instances, parents abuse their children. And so all we're trying to do here is say that if you have a minor, that you will not have surgery on a minor that changes that minor's sex from male to female or female to male, that you will not have the administration of drugs that have the effect of impairing and inhibiting the natural growth and development of a child. Now, once a child gets to be 18, if they make a decision, they've reached the age of majority, they have the appropriate maturity to make those kinds of decisions. Adults can make those sorts of decisions. But to make that decision for a child that has that kind of permanent impact on their physical and mental health is something that we don't think is appropriate and we think needs to be stopped.
I would still make the case that your word here, bureaucrats, know better in certain circumstances than parents, but not in others. But I will not belabor the point there. One more question on the trans community and the athletes. The Senate voted 31-17 to ban trans girls from playing sports teams that align with their gender identity. Admittedly, I think when you talk to anybody about this is a difficult topic that doesn't have a clear solution that makes all groups happy. But I mean, have you spoken with members of the trans community about the right way to address this issue, trying to find some sort of good faith compromise here?
So there's division in our society about this issue. I've talked with female athletes who are very concerned about whether or not there's fairness in women's sports if a biological male is allowed to compete in events that involve speed or strength or size, and so I think if we want to have competitive women's athletics, if we want to have women's athletics where biological females have the ability to compete on a level playing field, then we cannot allow men to compete against them. And make no mistake about it, a transgender female is a biological male. And it's just not fair.
I want to talk about what's been accomplished when it comes to that 12-week abortion ban. Do you expect that there will be further restrictions down the road that Republicans want to pass in Raleigh?
There are no further restrictions that I'm aware of that are going to move forward in this General Assembly. Obviously, we have an election every 2 years. Don't know what the makeup of the General Assembly will be after the next election, but I certainly don't see amongst my members the number of people who would be necessary in order to pass a bill that makes further changes as far as those laws are concerned.
Your colleague over in the House, Tim Moore, involved in a bit of a scandal right now. I'm not going to ask you to weigh in on your colleague's scandal because I know you don't want to, but the whole alienation of affection thing has come up. Do you think that's an antiquated law on the books that should be changed?
I have been supportive of keeping the alienation of affections and criminal conversation torts in our law. I believe that they are things that protect or at least recognize the sanctity of a marriage, and I don't see a need to make that change.
The GOP a couple of weeks ago censuring your old colleague Tom Tillis. Do you agree with that move?
I've never been in favor of what, for all practical purposes, would be a circular firing squad. I think we advertise the Republican Party, and I believe it is, as a big tent. And I think what that means is that there are going to be times that elected officials may not agree with some members of the party. I just think that's part of what a healthy party would be. And if I had been a delegate at the convention, I would not have voted in favor of that.
A final question. I know you had appeared at an event for Mark Robinson when he announced for governor. Are you planning to formally endorse him and support him in the primary?
I'm not prepared to make an endorsement at this time. I have told anyone who asks that I think Lieutenant Governor Robinson would make a very good governor. I think he's got the right talents and the right philosophical leanings to be a very good governor for the state of North Carolina.
Senate President Phil Berger. Senator, thanks for coming on, and we appreciate your time.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, take care. Where's the Money investigation coming up after the break.